Hello and welcome to Cal Cinema Center. I'm your host, and today we'll be talking about Toy Story 5, directed by Andrew Stanton, starring all the voices you already know from the other four, plus Conan O'Brien as a potty training tool named Smarty Pants, and Greta Lee as a frog-themed iPad named Lilypad. I know there was a lot of skepticism when Toy Story 4 came out because Toy Story 3 was such a perfect ending for so many people by having all the toys move away from Andy. It's a little bit divisive, but I thought that one was pretty good, but then it also ended things even harder by separating Woody and Buzz. So when this fifth one was announced, I wasn't really surprised, but I was incredibly skeptical because it just seemed like a bad idea. How do you even do a Toy Story movie if you can't have Woody and Buzz together? Is this really necessary? To answer that second question, it isn't remotely necessary. No movie, especially not a fifth installment of the Toy Story series, is ever truly necessary, but I do think it is well executed, and I liked it more than I thought I would going in. To answer the first question I asked, they did find an excuse to get Woody and Buzz back together again, but they also did something a little unexpected by having this movie center Jessie. Jessie and the other toys have to reckon with a new existential crisis, which is how toys will exist with the advent of technology and devices designed to suck away everyone's time. This story both serves as a reminder about what the benefits of technology could be and what the detriments could be when it comes to human connection. In a way, technology makes us feel more connected with people than ever before, but it also makes us feel more insecure and isolated than ever before too, which I think this movie understands pretty well. It's very easy for this kind of narrative to feel condescending or like an old man yells at cloud kind of deal, but thankfully it did not go down that road. This movie is essentially split into three plot lines for most of the runtime. We have the main story with Jessie and Bullseye, where they end up stuck at Jessie's old home after trying to help Bonnie connect with people. We have the B plot, which consists of Buzz and Woody trying to keep Lilypad under control while also trying to find Jessie. Then we have the C plot, which involves an army of high-tech Buzz Lightyears who end up stranded on an island and are compelled to find Star Command. And they say Star Command a lot. While I think the way these plot lines converge makes for an effective climax, I'm not so sure each plot line is super satiating on its own. The most effective and memorable plot line is easily Jessie's, as it packs the hardest emotional punch and also features everyone's favorite talk show host Conan O'Brien. Toy Story 2 is my favorite movie in the franchise, so it sometimes feels like it's trying to mine it a little hard for nostalgia, but it mostly feels respectful and necessary for Jessie's character arc at the end of the day. There's one particularly powerful scene towards the end of this arc that had me tearing up. If you know, you know, it involves a box. Conan O'Brien is also incredibly funny and charming whenever his character makes an appearance, offering some great comedic relief. He's easily the best new addition to this movie when it comes to the new cast of characters. The B plot with Woody and Buzz features a lot of the same bickering you'd expect from earlier Toy Story movies, while also including a new romantic storyline with Buzz and Jessie that was really sweet. Greta Lee does a good job of voicing Lilypad, and I think she's a great pick to voice a tech device like this. I don't know how to explain it, but she has a very Siri-like voice, while also being able to gain sympathy in more emotional moments, and she's pretty funny, to boot. One thing that really lends to this movie not feeling as condescending or preachy as it could have been is that Lilypad is a character who is not depicted as being inherently evil. She wants the best for Bonnie, just like the toys do, which I think makes for a much more interesting conflict for this kind of story over just making her comically evil and malicious. My main issue with this storyline is that they seem to be struggling to figure out what to do with Woody. He is definitely sidelined given how complete his arc has become in the other movies, but he is mainly just on the receiving end of jokes about bald spots and beer bellies in this one. I get how the bald spot happened with all the sun damage and stuff, but I'm frankly confused on how the beer belly thing works. Like, how can a toy get a beer belly? I guess like the fabric and the stuffing like just goes out. I don't get it. It felt like the writers were in a tight spot, as you can't do one of these movies without Woody, but the other movies have already given Woody such prominent development. The C plot with the army of Buzz Lightyears is easily the weakest. It definitely pays off pretty well, but it mostly feels like a way to fill the runtime with more jokes to alleviate the tension of the other two plot lines. It kind of feels like they're trying to do their own version of the Minions, but thankfully Buzz is a significantly more tolerable character to me than any of the Minions. It was a charming side plot for sure, but also not the most interesting, and I definitely wanted to get back into the A and B plot whenever these guys showed up. The other side characters that you've gotten to know from all the other movies don't play much of a role here. They have some brief cameos and a couple of lines at best, but for the most part, they're stuck in the box somewhere, or doing something else in the case of most of the Toy Story 4 characters. With a series that constantly introduces new characters in each entry, it is unavoidable to not at least sideline some of them, but I would have still liked to see a few more of the characters outside of the core 3, Bullseye, and the new ones come into play a little bit more. The approach to storytelling that this movie takes with the A, B, and C plots feels very reminiscent of a TV episode more than any of the other movies have felt. It ultimately makes this story feel a bit small. This is also an issue I had with Inside Out 2, where the story they had at hand is just not capable of feeling as grand as the previous entries. I don't necessarily mean just in scale, like the pure story scale, but also just in how emotional these movies get. I think the Jessie storyline gets there, but I can't say the same for the other two storylines. Also, a smaller issue I had is that there is a lot of suspension of disbelief needed here for certain parts, such as how there's a small little retcon involving Jessie having her first owner's address written on her, and how we've never seen this before, or how technology is used throughout. Like, I don't understand why all the Buzz Lightyear toys would just have hotspots on them. It is never too hard to suspend disbelief during this movie, but I just thought I'd point out those small things, as they did bother me a smidge. The animation looks pretty nice. It definitely holds the high standard of animation that has been set for this franchise so far. One thing I will say is it doesn't look noticeably better than 4 did. I haven't done too much digging into this, but I wouldn't be surprised if some scenes looked a little worse even. I feel like the pure fidelity of 3D animation has started to plateau a little bit in terms of how good these movies can look. I think that's why a lot of movies now are trying to emulate the Spider-Verse movies or have some sort of stylistic choice that stands out, because having top-notch, high-tech animation just doesn't seem to cut it anymore. I think the best-looking sequences in this movie do exactly this too. All of the playtime sequences have this sort of pastel, scribble, crayon effect, and they look really nice. One small detail I particularly liked about one of these sequences is that they gave the Conan O'Brien character Conan's real hair. I thought that was pretty fun. I know this sounds negative, but it's not too big of a negative because the movie still looks visually pleasing and good overall. It is just not revolutionary. Which would be perfectly fine if this weren't an installment in a series that has always pushed the envelope for CG animation. Ultimately, Toy Story 5 is a worthy and charming installment in the oldest CG animated movie franchise, and I think it has a lot of meaningful things to say about the ways in which technology has infiltrated our lives in ways that are both good and bad. It feels a bit episodic in nature, and I don't think every storyline is as strong as the last, but the stuff here involving Jessie really works, and gives this movie a solid emotional core. Do I think it lives up to the first 3 in this series? Not really, but this is also far from a bad movie, and it's about on the same level of enjoyment as Toy Story 4 for me. Moving over to the ratings board, I enjoyed Toy Story 5. I don't think it's perfect, but it's pretty much in line with how I feel about the better offerings from both Disney and Pixar this past decade. If you like the other Toy Story movies, you will probably get a kick out of this. I kind of feel like it's a bit difficult to give a specific recommendation to this one because I feel like you're either on board or you're not at this point in the series, you know? Have you seen Toy Story 5 and did you enjoy Toy Story 5? Please let me know in the comments section below, and be sure to like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.